Hello and welcome to another episode of PsycKicks. My name is Liv, and today we're going to be talking about me. Actually, not really, not that much. If you guys are new to the podcast, I'm a psychic medium, and this is where we talk about all things spiritual, metaphysical, paranormal, and in between. And we're going to be talking about paranormal stories of a medium, and that's me. That's where the paranormal stories come from. If you don't know, I offer readings, and I don't know, just embarking on the journey of having a business that's spiritual and metaphysical as a psychic medium is just interesting because I would personally delegate myself as one of the least, I don't know, everyone likes to use the term woo-woo, which I think is just an interesting way to put it because it sounds more like a sound to me than a word, but I'm not one of those like Swami enlightenment sort of touting, crystal selling, incense burning people, but I do talk to the dead, and I am also a pet psychic and things like that. So I channel energy. I would categorize myself as a psychic medium, and I really just like to learn about a lot of cool things, and I think spirituality is awesome, and that is also what I would put myself under the category as of like a spiritualist. So we talk about paranormal investigations, we talk about spirit guides, we talk about the astral projection and astral plane, all things spiritual, but I also like to talk about really cool things like gods and deities and history. Like last week we talked about werewolves in a 2-part series. So if you were interested in things like that, stick around. But yeah, we're going to be talking about my experiences as a professional medium, which I've been doing for about 4 years now. I've always been a medium. Again, if you're new and don't know me, hi. So it's just always been an interesting way to perceive the world, and I've got stories about it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. The newest stories that Olivia has gotten from existing, and it's going to be fun. So before we get into that, people have been asking for me to share more personal details about myself before we get into all of the really cool things. If this is something that you don't want to listen to, there will be in the show notes, or if you're listening on the PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel instead of like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, whatever you listen to podcasts on, there will be chapters in the description below, and you can just skip past this. One of the chapters will say Liv's life update. If you don't give a two hoots about it, then that's cool. I don't care. That's up to you. Just click to the next little spot and it'll be cool for you. All right. The timestamp. That's what it's called. The next spot timestamp. But anyways, oh gosh, what is new? This weekend, my husband and I are going out of town again to go to Chicago, and that'll be interesting. He is a technician for an automotive brand, and he switched brands. He used to be a super skookum awesome master tech in one brand, and now he's going to become a super skookum master tech in another brand, and that, I guess, dictates that we leave for 2 weeks. 4 weeks total. This is going to be the second time we're traveling to Chicago. And yeah, it's going to be interesting because I have a soon-to-be 9-month-old son, and being in the car driving for that long instead of flying, because flying I feel like would be worse with an infant, which is why we're driving the really long trek, is going to be interesting because last time it got hairy in a couple spots, but I'm excited. Hopefully he sleeps. My son Oak sleeps most of the car ride. If not, I'm just going to hang out with him, and it's going to be a good time. We'll figure it out whether or not it happens. But one of the things I'm looking forward to is going to the actual like city, because we've just been on like the outskirts of Chicago, and my husband actually has like nervousness driving places, which is totally fine. My mom was one of the people when she taught me how to drive. She was like, if you're scared, just get over it and keep driving. So that's kind of like the mentality that I have. But we didn't go into the actual city, my husband and I, last time because we were too nervous about having to take a train. We've never taken a train in our whole entire life. And we've like buses besides like the school bus. That's not something that we do. We live like in the middle of nowhere, basically. So doing things like that is new for us. And it wasn't something that we wanted to try and do with our car in Chicago with our child, just driving with the rental vehicle. So this time we're going to try and actually go into the city and use the train, because I think we might have figured out how to use the rail to get into the city, to see like they're really cool sites. Like, I don't know, the bean. Everyone talks about the bean in the Windy City. And I don't know, I want to touch the bean. It sounds fun to me. So that's what we're going to be doing. And I hope you all can wish us luck, because we don't know at all what we're going to be doing. It's how to do it, where to go. Yeah, it's some country bumpkins trying to go into a city. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited about it. There'll be pictures on Patreon if you guys who are listening are patrons. Hopefully we'll have some good pictures, but wish us luck. Anyways, let's get into the things that I want to share with you guys as a medium that have been happening in my life. Some really fun stories that, I don't know, I just thought they were kind of interesting. So, all right. One of the things that has been happening, reoccurring in my readings, because I offer private Zoom readings, because if I am not near you, then I would never ever be able to give you a reading. So we hold readings over Zoom, which is fabulous, because when I first started PsycKicks, I didn't think that I could do readings at all if I wasn't in the same room with the person. And my friend Emily was like, "You're dumb. You can do readings over Zoom." And I was like, "What?" And I mean, I'm channeling energy, so it's kind of like a telephone call anyway. So talking to a soul is that, I mean, and being on a telephone call with someone else, I don't even have to see your face to channel souls for you. But having Zoom is fun because I like to see your guys' beautiful faces. Anyways, one of the reoccurring things that has been happening in my medium readings over Zoom with clients is, this has happened, I think, 3 times now in like slightly different scenarios. And the only thing I can think of in my mind to give what's been happening a name is spiritual hypnopomps. Now, hypnopomp is like, there's something called hypnopompic hallucinations. Now, hypnopompic hallucinations, in a like psychological medical term, I believe in layman's ways of explaining it, is when your body thinks that you're still asleep, however, you're consciously awake, but subconsciously asleep. So the things that were happening in your dream that you were just dreaming about, you hallucinate while being awake. So hypnopompic hallucinations, it's like your body isn't caught up with your brain, I guess, or your brain's not caught up with your body, and you see the things that aren't actually there that you were just dreaming about. Now, with this spiritual hypnopomps, it's so odd to me, because so I was having a reading. I'll just explain it as easily as I can, but hopefully it's easy for you guys. I was having a reading with a man, and their reading was great. It was going really well. And one of the questions that they had towards the end of the reading was, "Can you tell me about this encounter that I've been having paranormally with this girl?" And I was like, "What girl?" So I put on my mediumship hat and just like stuck it on. I mean, it was already there, but I had to like pivot, because when I'm channeling energy, I have to think about, if I'm talking to someone who's in heaven or spirit, I channel into sort of that frequency. And then if someone asks me something about like their house, which would be a paranormal haunting, I pop into that frequency of like, what's the energy in their house? What could they be talking about? And things like that. Because sometimes things that people say that are going on in their houses are not paranormal. It is completely explainable by things that are not spiritually fueled at all. It's like there's a mouse in your wall, and that's why your cat's been staring at the wall for a really long time, etc., etc. But this man wanted to know why he kept having interactions with this girl. And I was like, okay. So I redirect my attention to the energy of his house, and I don't see a girl necessarily. I mean, I do, but she is almost looks like a drawing to me, if that makes sense. If you were to take a drawing off a page and then make it into a cartoon, sort of like she was 2-dimensional, not necessarily 3-dimensional. And I was like, okay, so who's allowing me to see this? So I asked my spirit guides, and they sort of popped over and were like pointing to my client's spirit guides. So I asked my client's spirit guides, okay, what's going on? And the answer that I got was that the girl that this man is talking to is not actually a ghost. And when I say ghost, a separate soul, a separate entity, a separate human that is either not crossed over or is just hanging out in this man's house, their own separate person, their own separate soul, energy. That wasn't what it was. This girl was actually a manifestation of a portion of this man's identity. Exactly. My mind was blown too. I was like, what? So, what they're seeing is a perception of themselves that they somehow identify with as being this little girl. And it absolutely blew my mind. I was like, what? So I did it does not make sense to me. And it still doesn't make sense to me necessarily. It's almost like if you were to create an imaginary version of yourself, like if someone had to say to you, how would you describe yourself to someone else? And you make a caricature of yourself almost, that is what this person was doing. And they were interacting with it or them or she, however you want to think about it. And they thought that they were a ghost, but they weren't. They were literally just interacting with an aspect of themselves. And I said this to this person, and they were like, oh, and I 100% was waiting for them to be like, that's crazy. That makes no sense to me. I've never heard of that before. You're a really crappy medium, anything like that. And this lovely client looked at me and said, oh, okay, well, that makes sense because that's what you told me in my email reading. So I did not remember that I gave this lovely man a email reading. That's something also that I offer because they're less expensive and I don't have to go into so much detail all the time. It was a more affordable thing, especially with me being on maternity leave a couple months ago. I was like, I still want to be able to do readings for people, but I can't do in-person readings because baby, postpartum, yada, yada, yada. And I had given them an email reading months ago and they'd asked me the same question and I didn't remember, but I gave them the same answer. So I was like, okay, that freaks me out. Cool beans. I'm glad I could answer your question that you are just communicating with an aspect of yourself and not an actual soul or ghost. Awesome. Cool. Have a nice day. The rest of the reading went great and they were very happy with that answer, but it bothers me. I can't understand it. And it's, I don't know. I've never come across it before. It's very novel. It's a novel idea. So that is why I came up with the idea of spiritual hypnopomp. I'm like, okay, cool. Great. Moving on. New day, another reading. I have another lovely person that talks to me and she wanted to know a couple different things. And we talked about those things. I spoke to her spirit guides, stuff like that. Well, everyone has things going on in their life, right? Things that they wish they could change, things that they're working on, self-growth, development, worries, whatever. And in the middle of the reading, at the beginning of the reading, this lovely woman wanted me to touch upon the idea of she felt like there might be something in her house, a negative entity of sorts. And after talking to her spirit guides about other things, when I do readings, I write things down, whether it's your questions or stuff that pops up into my head, because the information I get isn't for me, it's for you. And no matter how interesting or silly it sounds, I'm going to say it because either I can be wrong or the information will make sense later if it doesn't immediately jive with you when I say it. So I was looking at my notes and I had seen that she wanted to talk about this dark presence that she felt was in her house. And we talked about everything else. So all the people that hate this phrase, circle backed, or circled back. And I said, hey, before we go, because we're almost out of time, I know you had questions about this. Could you tell me more about it? Like what do you mean by like a dark entity? And while she was talking, I saw what she was perceiving, which was this sort of dark mass in the corner of her room. And it stares at her in the corner at night. And, so I rechanneled my energy of focusing on things in the house, the energy around her, not necessarily her spirit guides or her past loved ones in heaven, but the physical psychic aspect of things. And what ended up coming to be was her spirit guides again, just like the last reading. They pointed out to me, they said, listen, this isn't a separate entity. This isn't some sort of thing that's attached to her or trying to be associated with her energy because she's worried about these things. It was actually the manifestation of her worries. Right? I don't understand it entirely. Like, I understand how poltergeists exist. Poltergeists are amalgamations of energy, negative energy, usually, or just energy and essence from people or events or things, and they need energy or that energy that manifested them in the first place in order to exist. So if you have a lot of strife and stuff going on in your house between family members, sometimes that energy can create a poltergeist, and that poltergeist is just a noisy ghost. It doesn't necessarily have very much sentience, but it does know what created it because it is what it was created out of. So it's going to try and continue to evoke those sort of ideas. So I don't think she was making a poltergeist necessarily, but it was this sort of big foreboding presence because that's how she feels about certain things in her life. And it just stares at her because she was trying to deal with things, but just like every human being, we're trying to deal with things, but we can't always deal with them to the best capacity. And for whatever reason, I'm not saying this is happening to everybody. This is just the things that have been happening in my readings. And for this person, she was manifesting this energy separate from herself, almost like taking her worries and thoughts and fears and then putting them out into this blob, I guess. And the way to get rid of it, according to her spirit guides, was to acknowledge it was there and say, okay, there's nothing I can do about it right now, but I'm going to let it go and accept that it's there, but not give any more thought or energy to it, and that it should hopefully go away. And I told this lovely woman, I was like, please, if this works, I need you to email me and let me know because I will be mind blown. But that's another like spiritual hypnopomp, someone taking their ideas not knowingly, subconsciously, and manifesting it into something that they think is a separate haunting from themselves, its own separate entity. But these things are actually parts of them that they are manifesting into this sort of hallucination. But it's not a hallucination because it's spiritual. I don't know. It freaks me out. I don't understand how it works. So yeah, those are my two spiritual hypnopomp stories that I have for you. I have another one, but I don't know necessarily how to rationalize it yet. And I don't know if it's not really a hypnopomp. There's more to it. So I will save that story for another day. It has to do with past lives, hypnopomps, and like so many other things that I still have to kind of dissect and understand. And I don't necessarily understand the hypnopomps themselves. If you guys have an idea about it, please let me know in the comments below. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, I know you can like rate the show and then leave a comment, write it in that comment. And if you're listening on the PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel, write in the comments below because I can't entirely, that's what I understand from it. But it's mind blowing me, and it's also sort of stumping me all at the same time. But when I figure out more about the other story, I'll share it with you guys for sure. It's just a little more complex than that. So anyways, let's move on. The next story that I have for you guys actually has to do with my son. Before everyone gets like asking me questions about, is he going to be a medium like you? Do you think he has spiritual abilities? I don't want to talk about that. That's not what this is about. It's more just like a funny anecdote that I think was interesting. In real life, I have a brother, and he doesn't identify as a medium, and I don't think he has medium encounters or even psychic encounters really that he ever talks about. But I do think that mediumship is genetic. However, children and animals do not have egos, and your ego is your sociocultural perception of the world around you. It is the things that you learn that inhibit you from seeing the world in certain ways because people have told you like ghosts don't exist. This can't happen. This does happen. The sun is yellow. The sky is blue, yada, yada, yada. Those are things that create your ego. But if you're an animal or a child and you haven't been alive that long, or you don't have someone telling you those things and you don't understand them, you don't have an ego. So therefore it is much easier because everyone has psychic abilities. It doesn't mean you have to say you're a psychic or a medium. You just are able to have psychic abilities just like everyone is able to use and utilize their 5 physical senses in their own capacities. The same thing applies to your psychic senses. So it's just that you can utilize those psychic abilities more easily because you don't have something that you've learned inhibiting your ideas of those things. So anyways, I was getting ready for a reading. And one of the things that I don't trust the most when it comes to mediumship and when I am doing readings is when Native American souls step forward. Going back to the beginning where I say like woo woo spiritual stuff, I just always associate the cliche of like Native American souls stepping up to people that say they're psychic mediums and being like, they're a teacher for me, which I'm not saying that is wrong in every case. I just find it to be like super cliche. So when stuff like that does happen, that's like a red flag for me. I'm like, is that my ego talking? Is this really happening? Is this just a cliche? I don't trust it. I always like double check it. So I was doing readings for the first like 6 months that Oak was born. I was on maternity leave for 2 months. That means from 3 months to about 6 months, I was doing readings with Oak, which was easier because he just would sit in my arms and just hang out while I did readings. And now that he's older, I changed my schedule so that I can have help in the evenings and not have to worry about him trying to like nosedive off of things because he's just absolutely running around wild now, which is great. I love it, but not when I'm trying to focus on you guys during reading. So, but during this time, he was a part of the readings in the background while I was just holding him and channeling souls and whatnot. And I was getting ready for a reading, and people ask me, like, what do you do before you have medium readings? Just like cleanse the space or like do this stuff? No, I don't. I usually just sit down and I grab my pen and my paper, and I'm like, all right, so I'm going to be meeting with so-and-so today. Who would want to talk to so-and-so since they're getting ready? And I have about 5 minutes until I'm fortunate enough to meet them. And in this instance, right in front of me to the right of my computer as I'm sitting with Oak, there was like the soul of this man. And he looked like he lived around like normal times, not like far in the past, this like 90s, 2000s, but he looked Native American. And I was like, oh man, I'm not seeing this. This is weird. I don't usually see people physically in front of me, just like standing in the boxes next to my my computer. I'm losing it. So I kind of like pushed it away, and I was like, who wants to talk to so and so today? And I'm holding Oak in my arms, and I just keep perceiving this Native American man standing next to my TV, or not my TV, my computer. And all of a sudden Oak looks and he smiles and he waves. And I see the Native American man wave. And I'm like, no shit. So that's how I knew that he was actually standing there. And I would like to say that during the reading, my client ended up being half Native American and then half something else. And this man ended up being her uncle who had passed away a couple years before. But I was like, oh, it's so cute. I wasn't hallucinating. It is real. And Oak saw this really nice man, and he was really nice to Oak. So what I'm saying is I think Oak saw this man too. Which just I thought was really cute confirmation, but I'm not saying that my son is a medium or a psychic or anything like that at all, because he is a baby, and if that happens, that's for him to say. That's not for me to speak on, but he is a baby, and babies and animals are able to perceive the spiritual and the paranormal much more easily than when we actually have an ego. That's why children experience ghosts and paranormal activity a lot more than adults, because they're just open to it. And that doesn't mean they're going to be mediums one day. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because I thought it was really cute. And it just made me happy because this soul was so nice to him. I was like, aw, that's adorable. You guys are going to be friends. All right. Next story that I want to talk about is past lives. And I thought this one was pretty cool. So when I give past life readings, I don't actually have like a specific reading for it right now. It is something that I want to do in the future, whether it be back on Patreon as like an exclusive service or just add it as a service in general. But I mean, if you guys make a psychic medium reading, I will answer. I can't not answer your questions. It's really bad. I'm not one of those people that's like, no, you have to make a separate reading and you have to pay me more money. I can't do that. It really bothers me. So anyways, if you like make a medium reading with me and you're like, could you tell me about my past lives? I will most surely tell you whatever steps forward. And if someone doesn't step forward, I will be like, I don't have an answer for you because I don't control talking to your past lives. So if they have something cool to say, I will share it. But if not, then, I'll tell you that. But I don't do I've never done like a past life regression. I know some people do past life regressions and it's like this whole hypnosis thing and all this other stuff. And if I talk to your past lives, I do not do any of those things. It's for me, your past lives are you, but they're also separate of you. The way I understand past lives is think of your higher self, yourself right now, your soul, and then your past lives, which are your past souls. So all of your past souls, past lives, and your current life and future lives make up the body of your higher self, which is going to be more of like a higher spiritual being that you as souls are a part of. So same, but different is kind of how I like to explain past lives and higher selves. Now, since your past lives are souls and they are you, but they're also separate from you. For example, like I know I've probably had some past lives that if we were in the same room as people like living, I would not be friends with them. Like that's how different your past lives can be. And when I see them, because they're separate souls, when I perceive them, for whatever reason, I perceive them on my left-hand side. And I think that's because for me, perceiving information on my left-hand side means that it's psychic information or things that have to do with the living world. But you, yourself, are currently living. So I think that's why they present on my left-hand side, because they are a part of you, even though they are separate from you. But I perceive them on my left-hand side as souls. So it's just basically like I would be talking to someone in heaven or spirit, but they present differently, I guess, just to help my brain understand who I'm talking to and where they're coming from. So they talk to me just like I would channel another soul. I just know that they're your past lives. So that's how past life readings work for me. There's not like a hypnosis that you have to go through or anything else like that. It's just talking to a soul. So I was giving a reading for a woman, and one of the questions she asked me was, can you tell me about my husband and I, and if we've ever had past lives together? Now, when someone asks me that, I'm like, all right, I'm on it. My ego brain goes, you guys had to have had some cruel, like really cool, like lovey-dovey past lives, right? Because obviously you love each other in this life. And, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some Romeo and Juliet shit, some really cool, juicy, like rom-com things. Nope. The answer could have also been that they've never had past lives before. And I would have had no one step forward and been like, nah, this is the first life that you guys are like shacked up together and that you've ever even encountered each other spiritually. But that was not the case. The souls that actually stepped forward to answer her question was that of her past life that talked about the past life they had with her now husband's past life. So what happened was this lovely woman and her husband shared a past life together where her soul was a slave for her husband's past life in like ancient Mayan, Aztec, Incan times. I know those are probably all a little bit different. I am not an archaeologist, so I'm sorry. But they just said that they lived during the Mayan times and that was their relationship. And it was interesting too, because the way they explained her life or as a soul was when she decided to incarnate as a person, her soul and her husband's soul lived during that, I don't know, millennia maybe, era, that Mayan era for a really long time. And once that era, that empire sort of ended, their souls were like, screw it, we're not incarnating, not for a while. Now in modern era, their souls are choosing to incarnate as people again. So I just think it's interesting that they had that big gap between when their souls chose to reincarnate again. Now, the cooler part was the relationship that they had when they had that Mayan past life. So, like I said, Her soul was that of a slave for her husband's past life, which was interesting. And their dynamic was this. Her past life explained to me, and they were both male. Her male past life explained to me that her husband's past life was a son for a very wealthy family. And the wealthy family ended up passing on the family business, quote unquote, to him because he was the heir to the business. So, but he was one of those like rich kids that didn't actually know how to run a business. He was like old money and did not have the knowledge, wherewithal, understanding, anything to run the family farm and be a head for the slaves that his family owned for the business. But her soul, as being one of the slaves in their like community of slaves, because at the time that's just slavery was a thing and it was very normal. She was the head of the slaves in the community that her husband's family owned. So she was the person that all the other slaves looked up to, the leader, if you will. And it was through her interactions with the rest of the slaves, as well as the people that they worked with for their business. I think they had like some sort of crops, like some crop that they grew, and it was a farm. But through her interactions with the slaves and the people that they had to work with that would come and like pick up not inventory products from them, the farm stuff and things like that. That's how her husband learned how to run the business, because she knew how to run the business better than his parents did and better than he did. So by watching her past life, he was able to run the business. And at some points and occasions, he actually would go up to her and be like, hey, can you tell me how you get everyone, all the other slaves, to do this? How do you make sure that this crop works? And like, he learned the trade secrets from her. And I just thought that was a really interesting past life to have with someone. Like, that's not what you would think when you ask, like, oh, did my husband and I have past lives together? Like, no, that's not at all what you would think. And I just thought it was interesting. And I was like, okay. So I asked her spirit guides and like her past lives themselves. I'm like, okay, that's a very interesting dynamic, as well as a very interesting past life. So why is it now that they are in a relationship and they're so very much in love and like perfect for each other? And the way spirit and her spirit guides, and when I say spirit, I just mean like collectively, spirit answered the question was, well, they've learned how to be aggressors for one another. And this sort of this pivotal past life is what shaped the future of them being able to learn the opposite, which is love and understanding. Because through hardships and through butting heads and being someone's aggressor and then being the victim, it like incarnation and reincarnation is all about learning the difference between sympathy and empathy. And through each life, you learn different things. And by learning different things, it's almost like you can have a life as an aggressor and you can have many lives as an aggressor. However, through every life that you are the problem, your life is going to, with subsequent incarnations or reincarnations, start turning towards the opposite of that. You're going to start to learn how to be someone that helps people, someone that may even be a victim in scenarios, because that is the point of physical existences, to learn that well-rounded understanding of both sides of the coin. So at this point, I feel like they had been a very tumultuous past lives where they were always at odds. But in this past life, it was almost like a breakthrough or a breaking point in some sort of universal way, I guess. Yin, yang, good and evil, whatever you want to call it, where they had met and were able to help each other. And I don't think that that's the most recent past life that they've had and now they're just where they are. I think there were more after it, but for whatever reason, she had to hear this one. And I didn't know why she had to hear it. And I was kind of mind boggled in the first place. I was like, I know this isn't what you might have been looking for, but this is the answer that they're giving me. So I can't do better than that, because this is This is what they got. And thought it was very interesting because they just kept saying like the Mayan era and you guys lived in this time, but now you're choosing to incarnate in this time. Like there was a big gap between the incarnations. Well, it wasn't until probably 20 minutes into her reading after this, 10, 15, 20 minutes into the reading after this, I mean, she seemed happy with the answer. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad you like the answer that was given to me. Cause I always have this trepidation that people will not accept the information that I give them because it's not what they want. Because mediums at the end of the day are not here to tell you what you want to know. We're here to tell you what you need to know. And I don't know how or why that is dictated as something that she needed to know, but I guess it was. And it was very healing for me for her to accept that and be okay with it because I have my own, like I said, just worry about how people will receive the information that Spirit has for them through me, because I feel like if they don't like what Spirit has to say, then I feel like it's my responsibility, which is my own dealings as a medium and things that I'm learning as a professional and as a woman that's running a business and things like that. But anyways, it wasn't until later in the reading that she told me she had a question about her dog that had passed, and the dog that had passed was telling me about a dog that was still alive. So I brought it up in the reading. I said, "Do you still have a dog that's alive?" And she goes, "Oh yeah. Her name is Maya." And I was like, "Well, that's cool." I said, "I like that name. It's really cute." She goes, "Well, yeah, I actually find it interesting that you were talking about how my husband and I have past lives during the Mayan Empire because we just recently visited the Mayan Empire together and we rescued this dog. And because we were so just moved by visiting the ancient Mayan ruins and we felt so connected to them that we named her Maya." Are you kidding me? I can't with these things. Like when people ask me, like they're trying to understand their psychic abilities and cultivate them and nurture them to be the best that they can be with their capabilities. And they ask me the question of, how do you get over the confidence issues? That is how I get over the confidence issues. Because this whole time I'm telling you guys, like, I'm unconfident in the things that I am saying because they sound so preposterous, because of the ego that I have. The society and culture that I've been raised in have given me these worries about these things that I'm saying. But it isn't until I get stuff like that, like the man that I had the reading for with the Hypnopomp, and he's like, "Well, you literally told me the same exact thing in an email reading." And in email readings, people just ask me one question. They don't give me a lot of information. Sometimes people give me more information, but most of the time it's like one or two sentences, and it's very just face value. So I find it interesting that without meeting this person, without hearing their voice, nothing. And I was so nervous to do email readings too, because I just felt like I needed to have that connection. Just like when I first started the business with Emily, that I needed to be in the same room as someone in order to channel the souls of their loved ones. I thought I needed the Zoom, and then I did email readings, and the email readings are going good. And then people say, "You literally told me the same thing 2 months ago, and I wasn't even talking to you. It was just written on a paper electronically." And then I visited the Mayan ruins and named my dog Maya because we felt so connected to that place. That is how you will get through your confidence issues. I feel like having confidence issues is always a good thing, because I'm learning more too about this, that with spirituality, you need to keep yourself grounded in spirituality, not let yourself fly away and your mind sort of just get jumbled and confused and just spin off into the sky. Spirituality should ground you, not make you want to escape reality. So I feel like having these confidence issues and trying to understand what's going on, even though it's very hard, because what you're doing is channeling energy. You're trying to make sense of something that's non-tangible, and making sense of something is tangible. So it's hard to get something tangible from something that isn't tangible. It's just this sort of like snake eating its own tail, a dog chasing its own butt, if you will, type of mentality. But that is how you get through your confidence issues. Sharing, if you can, in a way, the things that you're getting information for. Because if it makes sense, those coincidences like that, those things that seem like coincidences, that is how you're going to be like, I'm not crazy. I am getting information from spirit, and this is what I have to tangibly prove it. So if you guys are listening, if you can do a tarot reading with one of your friends, and if they're like, that makes absolutely no sense to me, I don't understand at all what you're talking about, that reading doesn't resonate with me, that doesn't mean give up. It just means that you may not be channeling the energy as well as you could, or you need to figure out how you channel energy a little bit differently. Maybe tarot cards aren't your thing. For me, tarot cards sometimes make it harder for me because I'm getting too lost in the card and I'm not actually channeling the energy. I feel like sometimes it can be a stop for people. But anyways, that is, find a safe place that you can talk to someone and give them a reading, that it is consensual and open and honest, because that is how you're going to get through your confidence issues. And I've even talked to people like, write things down. Like if you think you have a premonition or you feel something about someone or yourself or your spirit guides, write it down and then look back and be like, oh, I actually got that information like 2 weeks ago. I wrote it down in my journal and now it's coming true. That's another good way to get over your confidence. It's just having that validation to help get over your confidence. So yeah. Anyways, those are the stories that I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I don't know. I've been trying to share more of how I perceive things because I feel like it helps you guys to understand what's going on in my head when I receive information, because I want, if you guys receive information the same way, for it to validate things. And if you don't, write down in the comments below how you feel like you perceive your psychic information too, because I can help you with understanding maybe in the comments, or if you have questions, I can make another podcast answering those questions on how to just navigate your psychic abilities a little bit, because it's always going to be different for different people. You're going to perceive things differently. I like to say that one of my favorite things that a spirit told me a couple months ago was that spirituality and being a medium, interpreting energy and channeling it, is a lot like the Rorschach test. And if you don't know what the Rorschach test is, it's like I believe it's like the ink blots. So the psychologist would be like, here's an ink blot. Tell me what it looks like to you. And I guess depending on the answer, it would mean something different. But that literally is kind of what spirituality is like. It's, you are channeling energy. You are looking at this ink blot. And for one person, the ink blot might look like butterfly wings. And for another person, it might look like two mountain landscapes on either side. But it's just an interpretation of energy. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about these stories. Let me know if you have questions that you'd like me to cover in another podcast. And I hope you enjoyed me sharing a little bit about myself personally and myself as a medium, and just my own trepidations of doing personal private readings, because I love it. I know I make videos and I know I make podcasts, but I really love podcasts. I'm learning to love to make videos. I actually like editing videos a lot. I think it's fun, and I wish I had more time to put like more fun little anecdotes in it like I did a couple months ago. But with the baby getting bigger, and then, goodness gracious, that is Thenel snoring, my dog. She's a bear of a dog. She's a Newfoundland, so there's not monsters in the background. It's just my dog snoring like an absolute beast. But it's just been a lot, so I haven't been able to add more fun things to the videos, but hopefully in the future I'll be able to. But I love doing personal readings. That is why I started this business. I started doing personal readings in the first place, and then Em was like, hey, you want to start a YouTube channel? You want to start a podcast? I was like, I want to start a podcast. I don't know nothing about making no YouTube videos, but I'm learning. And I do enjoy using iMovie to edit things, but it all started because I wanted to do readings with people. And I've learned the most through meeting you lovely individuals. So, I appreciate meeting not only you, but the souls and spirits around you and learning more about spirituality in and of itself just through talking to you and your spirit guides and your past loved ones. It blows my mind every day, the different things that I learn and the confidences that I build. And just, I don't know, spirituality's cool. Being a medium's cool. And talking about all of this stuff with you is even cooler. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I got more stories for next time, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Questions, thoughts, things like that. If you want to join Patreon to be a part of the Discord server and get more like in-depth life updates, I guess, I post those every Monday and it's fun. I get to share pictures and you get more like fun little inside things like that. Go on down to the show notes, check out Patreon if it's something you're interested in and it's feasible for you. I would appreciate it. If not, I totally understand too. I love that you guys listen to me in your ear holes and watch on the YouTube tubes. Anyways, wish us luck in Chicago. Until next time, thanks so much for tuning in. And we are your meta PsycKicks. Peace.